Good morning.
Good morning. My full name is Ray Harrison Screws. I was born on April the 29th, 1935, 78 years old. Well, Mrs. Stoner, her first name was Ray, and she assisted Dr. Owens in a lot of births around Holly Bluff, and a lot of people have her name, and she named me Ray. Harrison, I don't know where that came from. Well, I have two sons, John and Kenneth. Okay, I got four brothers, Eldon, Jerry, Bo, and Jim. Early childhood was just a bunch of mischief and playing outdoors and going barefoot and stepping on nails, stepping on glass, always getting burned or stuck or stung by bees or wasps and things like that. Just total activity around a farm, and there was a lake. There was always a lot of stuff to do. Catching crawdads, throwing rocks, all kind of stuff, you know. My brothers, that was about it. Wow. Earliest childhood memories are a whole bunch of stuff around Big Fish Lake in Spanish Fork, Mississippi. Lived at Big Fish Lake, Spanish Fork, Mississippi, and my mother was a good homemaker, good cook, fed us well. Even when we didn't have a lot of wealthy type food, we had good food and always plenty of it. That house at Spanish Fort, there were 3 bedrooms, a living room, dining room, kitchen, and porch. Well, at first we had outdoor plumbing and no electricity. Then later on, Dad installed a bath. The room was already there as a bathroom, but he put in fixtures and plumbing, and then we had electricity later on. Oh, I remember the first TV I saw was looking through a display window in Yazoo City, Mississippi, and it was all grainy and black and white. And then a neighbor got one, and I went nuts over professional wrestling. When you get home from school every day, there were a lot of radio programs, 15 to 30 minutes, a Lone Ranger and Superman and Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy, all kind of stuff like that. I learned from my dad something very important, that alcohol, to me, is a dangerous drug. And I told my sons that they should never abuse alcohol, because it would ruin their life and everybody else's life in their family. Well, we lived in Colorado Springs, Rolling Fork, and Anguilla, Mississippi. The most memorable house that we lived in was Mount Helena, and that was a big, I guess you'd call it antebellum house on top of an Indian mound. And it got its name from they called it Mount Helena, and that was the name of the plantation. But the owner of the plantation, his wife, didn't want to live there, so they lived in town, and they rented out the house. Not a lot. My brothers would get up and go fishing. I didn't like to get up early in the morning. I couldn't get myself out of bed. But we did. Eldon and I went duck hunting and goose hunting, and I do remember shooting a goose, and my mother cooked it in a pressure cooker with a big pot of gravy, and that was so good. Shot that goose. Eldon and I were taking turns. He had shot at a goose who was flying, and I guess he missed it. And so it was my turn, and it was my grandfather's old shotgun, and it kicked real bad. And so Eldon stood behind me, or kneeled behind me, so it wouldn't knock me over in the mud. And there was this old goose. He didn't move. He must have been sick or old or something. I raised up and pow, got that son of a gun. We were not rich, but I had no sense of being poor. And one thing about my childhood is we had relatives around, and that was very important in my childhood because we had a kind of a turbulent life, but the stability I got from my aunts and uncles and grandparents. Mother, Josie Bell Screws, she was sort of like most young mothers when we were young, you know. It gave us instruction and showed us things that we needed to know and learn about. And but I noticed that later on in life we had such a big family, and she was so busy she didn't give the same attention to the younger brothers as she did to me and Eldon. Oh, my mom was a real good cook. And we all pigged out. And I think we have an eating problem today. I think I have an eating problem because I always raced with Eldon to make sure I got that last biscuit. And now, and I'm still racing for the last biscuit.
Anybody with 5 kids did that.
Oh, rice, gravy, and fried chicken. That was it. Started school in Holly Bluff, Mississippi, and then went to Colorado, and we went to a number of schools there. And then when we returned from Colorado, it was Rolling Fork and Anguilla, and then later on to Benton and back to Holly Bluff. I'm not sure. I was too young to really know. Mm-hmm. The 3 different houses we lived in, it was exciting to go and live in a new place and explore a new house and a new neighborhood and things like that. I don't think I really missed Mississippi. It kind of broke my accent because I lost that kind of twang to my accent. And people knew that when I came back to Mississippi. Some adults that I met would ask me, where are you from? And because I had lost that. Favorite teacher, I don't know that I had a favorite one. I had one that I really appreciated. It was Mrs. Wallace in Anguilla. She caught me chewing bubble gum. It made me write my multiplication tables 100 times each, starting with 2 times 2 all the way to 12 times 12. And I think even today I probably wouldn't know those tables if it hadn't been for Mrs. Wallace. Wherever you are, Mrs. Wallace, God bless you. Thanks a lot. I did. I liked school. Yes, I did. I went to junior college, and then I went to Millsaps.
And how long were you at Millsaps?
I was at Millsaps for 2.5 years. I had to work to earn money to go to college, and in the end of my junior year, I flunked accounting, and it ran out of money, and that was it. So I walked away. Went to the Army. I had nowhere else to go, no money, no place to go, so the easy out was to join the Army, and that's what I did. Basic training was Fort Ord, California, and after that I went to advanced training in Fort Devens, Massachusetts, and then shipped to Japan. Well, I have a long working career. I started out in Anguilla just doing all kind of odd jobs, mostly mowing lawns. Small yard would be 50 cents, a larger one 75 cents. And I did that, and then when I got a little older, I bugged my dad about getting me, taking me up to the State Highway Department to get a job cutting grass on the side of the freeway. And he really resisted, and he wanted me to stay around, and I was a short order cook, and because we always, well, for a few years we had a restaurant, and I cooked hamburgers and things like that. And so he wanted me to hang around the store, and that was boring. I didn't like it, and I wasn't getting paid, except for what I could snitch out of the cash box. And got that job cutting grass during the summer, and I did that for 3 years, 75 cents an hour, and later on they raised the minimum wage to $1.25, which was real nice. And that was quite a job. It was hard work, but a bunch of guys, and we had fun. No shirt, just a baseball cap. And every bush you hit, it had a wasp nest in it, snakes, things like that. Yeah, I had a store and we sold groceries, and we had a restaurant in the back, and Mother sold regular lunches, and we had chitlins for the blacks that would come in there. They love boiled chitlins. And I cooked hamburgers. My best friends, let's see, in my senior year in high school, on the basketball team, I had all the basketball guys were my good friends. Roger Doris primarily, and Jimmy Coker. He and I were guards. Roger was a forward, and Burdette Boyd, I wasn't close to him, but he was a good friend. He was the only great athlete, gifted athlete I ever knew, and he was a good friend. And Gene Stonestreet was the center, and we were good friends. They're all gone now, except for Jimmy Coker, and I lost contact with him. Well, I had the preacher's daughter in Benton, and she was a very pretty girl. And then we moved back to Holly Bluff, and I lost contact with her. It was too far away, and didn't really have a steady girl like that. I never really went steady at all, you know, just went out occasionally with girls. Oh, Sis was the matriarch of our family, and did more for me than anybody else in the family. God bless her. And she just did a lot for the whole family. And then, of course, our grandparents, Granddaddy, Mama, and Pa. Pa was Robert Clare Screws, and he was known as Mr. Clare, or Uncle Clare. And he was a good role model, but I was closer to Granddaddy. And although I wanted to be like Pa, he was a dignified, I would say, a country gentleman. And that's kind of what I aspired to be. But I like Granddaddy the best, because he kept us busy. We shell corn, or pull corn, and cut wood, and even though that was kind of miserable and hard work, I was a lot closer to him. Mama is an unforgettable character. She just loved us without reservation, and I called her a hard charger. She was a perfectionist homemaker, and ran her household like they must have done in pre-Civil War days. She had, her farm was just self-sufficient. I had a smokehouse, a hen house, had eggs, even enough to sell eggs. Milked 2 cows every day, had always plenty of milk and butter, and buttermilk, and made cakes. We always had cake when we went to see her. It was she was an unforgettable person. I'm eternally grateful to her. Father's name was Robert Clare Screws Jr., and he was known as R.C. We called him Daddy, and he was a big, tall, 6'2", red-headed, freckle-faced guy, and tough as a nail, and very strict disciplinarian, and he was very religious in his early years, but later on became sort of a boozer and smoker, and the cigarettes killed him. Uncle was my mother's younger brother, and I guess my overall favorite uncle for sure. And he was quiet, nice looking guy. He had been a Marine in World War II, and later on retired from the Army as a warrant officer. And I always looked up to him and admired him very much. Other uncles were my dad's older brother, Uncle J.D., and Uncle Jarvis. But Uncle J.D. tried to help me, and I spent time with him down on his farm, pulling weeds and getting rid of Johnson grass and things like that. Oh, and it's really something. In Mississippi, you had to take agriculture, and it was 2 periods a day during my 4 years in high school, which was a total waste because I had no intention of being a farmer. The benefits, I guess, are being able to identify different breeds of pigs and cows. I mean, I know what a difference in a Holstein and a Guernsey and a Jersey and a Brownstein. I know those. And a few things like that I do remember. But I had no intention of being a farmer. I had no idea what I was going to be whatsoever. I just put one foot in front of the other and kept on going, and everything turned out right. Administrative duties during my almost my entire career. It was administration for 20 years and 3 days, and I would have stayed longer, but we had a business, and I wanted to get out and help my dad, and so I got out as soon as I could. Okay, let's see. Basically at Fort Ord, advanced training at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Then I was in Japan, and from Japan I was at Fort J in New York, and then to Korea, then back to Fort Lewis, Washington, to Korea again, and then to Okinawa, and then from Okinawa to the Armed Forces Examining Station in Denver, Colorado, and that was my last duty assignment. My wife's name is Reiko. I met Reiko in Japan. I was there for 5 years, almost 5 years, and that's where I met her, and we married, and our first child, John, was born in Japan. I met Reiko on a double date. It was one of the luckiest things in my life, although I didn't know it at the time. And later on, only later did I realize how lucky I was. And I only wish I had realized it sooner. Oh, they got upset, but my family, my dad, they didn't like it. My dad wrote to my company commander, but it didn't have any bearing on my decision. Been married since 1958, and I can't count the years. What would that be? About 30s, 50s?
2 years young, less than me.
Which would be?
We've been married 57, so you've been married 55.
55 years.
26.
Incredible.
It don't seem like it, does it?
Doesn't seem like it. Very cool. I learned right away when I tried my dad spanked us all the time, for gosh sakes, and I spanked John one time, and after I did that, I realized that was not my strong point. I said to myself, I will never do that again, and I never did spank either one of my kids, but Reiko was a disciplinarian, and I have to say she did a pretty good job of it. John is the kind of, when he was a kid growing up, he was the kind of guy that he could do stuff. I mean, he would play pool with the first sergeant in Okinawa in the Marine barracks. In the day room, he had a friend that was, his dad was a Marine. So he goes and the first sergeant says, "Come on, son, let's play a game of pool in my," and so when the first sergeant missed a shot, John cleaned the table, and that's the kind of kid he was. You know, he could do stuff, and he took karate, and he was very good. Some bully kept picking on him, and picked on him on the way to school, and underestimated John, and John cleaned his clock. Kenneth was a more sensitive type person. He was a very cute little boy. When John got in trouble, Kenneth would say, "Hi, sorry, John, I'm sorry." Yeah, 4 grandkids. Greatest blessing of my life. Kenneth has 2 girls, and John has 2 boys. Okay, John's sons are Sean and Benjamin, and Kenneth's children are Brianna and Ariel. Sean is, he's very mechanical. When he was young, and anything needed to be fixed, or the telephone the television needed to be adjusted or whatever, John would stand there and ask Sean to do it. And he had the ability, but John exercised that. And now he's a mechanical engineer, and that experience really paid off because he can just do anything. He's got an old Ford truck, a diesel Ford truck, and I've watched him do maintenance on that thing, and it just seemed impossible, each thing. Well, he would just look at it and say, well, I'm going to do this, and he would go ahead and do it. And that's been a good experience for him, doing the maintenance on that truck. Benjamin, my wife's favorite, just a very likable kid, and I enjoy talking to both my grandsons. And Benjamin, he's just a very likable young fellow. Ariel is Kenneth's youngest daughter, and we love to see her when she comes, and she's always a bundle of joy. Brianna, our first grandchild, she's a beautiful, a very petite little girl. Now she's a school teacher, and the children just love her. Well, when I was in the Army, I had my last year in the Army, I had a part-time job doing janitorial work in a office supply company. And I would throw the trash out, do the vacuuming, clean it around everywhere, wipe off the desk, put away office supplies, all kind of stuff I did. And one day, I always worked on Friday nights, and I had to go somewhere on TDY, so I missed Friday night, and I came in on Saturday morning. And that was the day of the big Thompson Canyon flood on August the 31st, 1956. And it rained cats and dogs. And the president of the company was there. And he was cleaning out the computer room, getting ready for a new computer. And I pitched in and helped him, and then we took a Coke break, and he offered me a job selling office supplies. And I decided to take it, and it turned out to be perfect for me. You gonna record this?
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, you know, as a parent, you're a disciplinarian and so forth, but your grandchildren, they kind of, the things that the successes that they have in life kind of fulfill your own life, things that you weren't able to accomplish yourself, your grandkids accomplish, and that gives you a great sense of fulfillment, especially if you have a lot to do with it. There's more, some things that I think are funny, she doesn't think are funny at all, and it was a challenge. Some of the Japanese police and customers, I was very open-minded about that, so I managed to get through it without any serious problem, but it was a challenge. The Japanese Buddhist temples, they have these rock gardens, and they're just perfect. That's called wabi-sabi, and Reiko's house and yard is her wabi-sabi. She takes care of those flowers and supervises the grass cutting and the tree trimming and things like that. That's her wabi-sabi. Okay, my philosophy I learned from the Cub Scouts, and it works. It works under any condition. It's do your best, and if you always do your best, things will work out. As a matter of fact, like different phases of my life and different decisions in life, I didn't really sit and ponder them and contemplate and do any figuring. I just did them, and I don't know if I made the right decision or if doing my best once I got there made it the right decision. A little bit of both, I think. I was lucky to be able to engage in sports early on, and I enjoyed that and through my high school years. When I went to college, I had a good friend, and he was going to Hines Junior College during the summer, and I shocked Mother when I told her I'm going to college, and she cried, and I had the money because I'd been working for all those years, and so I went off to Hines Junior College, and my friend, and he was going to be a minister, and I had no idea what he was. He was just my good friend. He says, I'm going to Millsaps. And I said, well, I'm going too. So I went, and then when I left Millsaps, I went in the Army because there was no place else to go. And my Army career was about as successful as possible. And then out of the Army, I just stumbled across office supplies, and I said, this is for me. And then concerning my marriage, I met this girl, and we couldn't say goodbye, and now that took a lot of doing my best. It was a challenge, and I guess that's what a marriage should be, is a challenge. So all those situations, I just did my best, and it worked out. So that's my philosophy of life, and that's the story of my life.